Hello and welcome to another episode of the Indie Alternative Podcast. It's me, Chris. On this episode, I'm delighted to be joined by Amanda McKinnon and Stephen Clark of BIS. It's Stephen's second time on the podcast, and they both join me to talk about the new album, Systems Music for the Home Defence, which is out in a few weeks. And they've also got a tour coming up, so we talk a bit about that, how this album's been recorded and written, musical influences of Manda, which was really interesting, and loads of other stuff. It was a really good and fun chat. I think you're going to really enjoy it. Before we hit the interview, here's just a quick reminder of all the ways that you can support the podcast. All the links to the social media are in the show notes, along with a link to buy me a virtual coffee if you want to support the podcast financially. And lastly, if you haven't written a review or left a rating, if you could do that, that would be brilliant. But that's it for the waffle. Here's Amanda and Stephen. Welcome to the podcast, Mandarin and Sci-Fi Stephen. How are you both?
Good, yes. All good.
You're back for another helping, Stephen.
Yeah, can't keep me away.
You've both been really busy. It's been, I imagine, quite an exciting time because you've got a new record coming out. Stephen, you said it's the best album you've ever done.
I say that every time anyway, but you have to. No, I think it's been a sort of long time coming. It's doing a much more electronic dance record. It's just always kind of, each time you approach a new album, you try to do the best bits of what you've done before and try to progress all the bits. And I just realised there was a strain of tunes that were just much more kind of basically kind of like Italo house and rave influence. They're kind of like, I suppose every band that's made a record recently has probably had to reassess what they do musically throughout the pandemic, and there's no getting away from it. It's going to be a common trope for the next few years about how, just the change in circumstances, change in lifestyle has affected how they go about their craft. And so for me, I just spent the first bit of lockdown, the very first one, just basically building a studio in my garden, but also just, I suppose, musically just found myself just digging for what I call my emotional safety net, just the records that were just the most reassuring. And so many of them were like from a time, just I suppose like being teenagers, but just before the real world hits in. And so that ties in time-wise with the kind of rave era and just like the commercial side of rave and how exciting that felt. And that, like, we've got our toes in various punk waters, but basically rave was our punk. And I suppose that's where it came from, is a lot of these were just like, just slamming on Italian house pianos onto things and just being like, this is really good fun. And so that's where it started from anyway.
Mandarin, how do you kind of approach each album conceptually, or does that exist? Is that a myth, or just like a collection of songs that fit something?
It's a hard one because some bands want to have completely individual albums, whether it's quite distinct ones like Blur have, or say Radiohead. But then a lot of them want to see this continuation as well, and the fans want to see them grow and mature and change. And it is a really difficult one. You also want to sound like you're the same band and not lose the fans that you've accumulated throughout. But you also want to do what you have in your heart as well. So it's a difficult one. You want to bring the people that you've managed to adopt with you, but also pull a few more in as you go, but also enjoy it yourself. So it's trying to do all of that at the same time. So at least this, the past few albums, we've not had any record label pressures like we maybe had in the beginning. And you have that pressure to conform and to try and get a chart album. And we've always had influences for what you choose for your single and things like that. So at least it's all just truly what we want once again, which makes it fun.
Yeah. And I wrote some notes down because I listened to it and I had dub, disco, reggae. Now, my dance music knowledge is not very good, but dance floor, synth, punk, and then basically the best of BIS, essentially, but with some really fairly, I don't know, new elements to it that I haven't heard you do before, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to pick up on the kind of vague dub and reggae things to certain parts, because we were kind of unusual at the start that we had this sort of unfashionable ska element to quite a lot of the early BIS things, because I suppose John especially grew up listening to a lot of two-tone specials, Selector and The Beat and whatnot, and we took parts of that, and it's like, so there's some of it is a sort of half-speed version of that in places, but yeah, it's I think going back to what I was talking about, just the kind of rave thing being our punk rock, is like there's just, I think our main influences have always been the music, the eras and the genres that have excited us the most, which be that two-tone, be that Riot Girl, be that proper, magazine Devo, the synth punk thing. It's like we just, we really absorb the thing we're most excited about, or have been, and that's our DNA. Is just doesn't work like a lot of normal bands does, where our sort of hardcore influences are not the most traditional. We've never really flirted with a very straightforward kind of, this is the Beatles album or whatever. It's just not part of it. Obviously, it's melodies and whatnot, but yeah, I think it's always the same. I think every time I think we've made a really cohesive record, everyone else says it has a million different influences, and they're probably right, and I'm wrong, and that's fine.
Your quote, in terms of it being the best album you think you've done, what might be the main reason for that? Is it due to, how free you feel, how unconstrained from labels and your age, your subjects that you're coming at different angles from now? I suppose it's probably a combination of those things, but is there anything specific?
It is. No, I think, this just felt like, with the time constraints we have, it's always difficult to get a record finished. So that's probably why I'm just delighted that we actually finished something. But I think, whilst we don't really come at things with an initial concept, I felt like this time it was kind of decided that this was going to be the rave record, and that was the driving force. So everything had to fit roughly into this bracket, and so that's probably why I feel it's the best one, because I feel it is the most cohesive. And I just think a lot of these songs were things that we've been working on over the years and never quite had the right format for. And this is a thing that bands don't really admit to, but if you're prolific, you have a stockpile of material. So a couple of these melodies or these lyrics will go back 15, 20 years. It's only now that this is the right format. Best is always subjective, but most satisfying is a personal feeling. So I feel most satisfied by the uncompromised end product here. I feel like the slight disconnects when it was good to come back and make a record, and there's some great songs on there, but we were still kind of remembering how to do it. And now I feel like, even though we work with limited means, there's no money, we do it all at home, but it doesn't sound like that. It sounds like we know what we're doing. So maybe that's why I feel it's the best, because it's been the most satisfying one to finish.
Yeah. And in terms of the writing process and maybe and that recording process, I mean, how close are you together? Is it quite easy to sort of nip into each other's? I mean, you're not living next door to each other, I'm assuming.
Yeah, me and Stephen live fairly close actually, so that's a handy thing, because we can just do things at short notice and whenever it's convenient. But John's still up in Inverness because his children are up there, and yeah, so that's 3.5-4 hours to get to. So
you're swapping files, I'm guessing, the new way of doing things. I suppose as COVID, I don't know, from the interviews that I've done and people I've spoken to about how they've been recording stuff recently, is that it has been very led by the pandemic and the restrictions, and people finding different ways to create, and actually it's quite a liberating way of approaching it. And did you find the same with your parts, Manda?
No offense, but I don't really like these Zoom things and stuff. I've always had a pretty lonely daytime most of my adult life because I work from home, and I do like doing it as a band. I do miss the early days where you write stuff in a rehearsal room, or you just write stuff together in a bedroom. To be honest, that's the way I like it more. But if you want it done, you've got to do it like this, I suppose. Yeah. So maybe I'll get back to that one day.
That's that whole kind of spontaneity of finding something new in a room full of people or friends, and coming up with something you haven't thought you'd ever create.
Oh, it's the thrill of the early days when you just do something stupid and then John or Stephen's just tag along to it, and it's been exciting, and then you go into that, and it's brilliant. Whereas now you have to kind of do a larger body of stuff to make it complete. So I don't know where it'll go from here.
I think I'd read something about you guys about, the albums like phases. It's like this is like the MCU but with BIS. So this would be phase 6. Would it be, because is it 6th album, studio album, or would it be the 5th? I can't remember.
I count it as 5 really.
5.
I think John's quite a stickler for the Data Panic one not being a real album. But if we just re-recorded those songs, then it would have been a BIS record. But we did use recordings of the era with like slightly tweaked it. So yes, this is proper album, proper 5, which is which for a so-called prolific band is a terrible returning the best part of 30 years, 25 years. So.
But there's a definite evolution of everything, and as I say, from what I've listened, it is BIS Mark 5 or the 5th wave or whatever you want to call it, although it's not right terminology for the current time.
Yeah,
does that feel good to you in terms of that sort of approaching it that way?
Yeah, I think we've always tried to keep moving. I'd love it to be as calculated as like, okay, that's the end of era 1 on to era 2. There's always a little bit of carry through, but also I think sometimes when I deliberately try to make something in the image of something we've already done, it never comes out as a facsimile because of all just everything extra you've taken on over the years. It's a classic of like every once in a while we'll sit down and be like, going, right, okay, we just need to write another Eurodisco. Just do it, right? You kind of go, right, okay, so these are the chords, so we just flip them around or whatever and just actually do something cynical like that. And we can never really see it through. It's always never and this is no offense to EMF specifically, but I always remember Unbelievable's a hit, and then the next song is called I Believe, and it sounds roughly similar. It's just like, I wish we had the like this one is the South America disco record or whatever. So to get back to the point, by accident there is a new era of this every time we do something. That's probably to our creative benefit and our commercial detriment, and that's the way it's always going to be. It's now too late to go back.
Yeah. Do you think, subject-wise, and a question for you both in terms of, obviously singing the lyrics, and I'm not entirely sure who does the majority of the writing, but you've got to sing about something that you're passionate about or something means to you. But now that we're in the sort of, well, we're not quite middle-aged, but we're approaching the. I mean, how are you finding subjects to marry with the music? Because to me, it's like this sounds so fresh and young. How far do you push the envelope in terms of what the subject of the song is?
Yeah, good. And now having a quick analysis of all the lyrics. Yeah, I mean, we just basically write our own lyrics and we'll combine on certain things if there's a theme and we can help each other out on. I don't know. Yeah, I guess I've become more cynical. My lyrics are quite cynical and probably more political, more directly political than they were. But also, I just like throwing in ridiculous statements and seeing if anybody notices as well. So there's the one that's come to mind is there's a song called Irrelevant Disco, which is, now we've always done this where we've kind of done a self-effacing look at the status of our band in the music industry, and just, I hate music industry songs, but it's really easy to write when it's what you're living through. So this one is just, Irrelevant Disco is just dead funny because it's all about how, people want us to go and tour in America or Japan or whatever, and they just don't realize that the financial, parameters that modern music is playing with, and it's like a totally euphoric tune with the not bleak, but just the most matter of fact kind of like, you see bands cancelling tours all the time now, big bands that can't afford to go to America, and it's like, again, this has all come out of things that have changed over years and whatnot, but the chorus of it is just like, Osaka, Kyoto, the places we don't go. And I'm just like, it sounds like Talking Heads, but it's just like a brutally cynical look at things. So I think from my lyric perspective, it's probably, I tend to err on the side of self-effacing sarcasm, but usually with a hook at some point.
Manda, you have that very unique sort of lyrical style and vocal style, which leans into punk and Riot Girl, and then it certainly suits this sort of synth elements as well. How do you approach like vocal takes and things? Is there a sort of a character that you need to become?
It's weird because sometimes I record something and then I hear it back and I just think, God, I am really irritating. and I don't really enjoy listening to myself. But then I have to look at it in a different way and think, no, this is me, and I'm not a proper singer, and I'm just doing it the way I have from the beginning. I go through stages where I think I really shouldn't attempt to properly sing. I should go back to doing the shouty thing, because I'm not maybe as bad as Ian Brown, but I can't ever sing Eurodisco in tune. It's just never going to happen. I admit that. And so I go through phases of confidence, really. And then you get the nice people saying stuff that's nice, and you think, no, they do love it. I should really just keep going. And then I start listening to my influences again. And I thought, fuck yeah, of course I'm going to keep going. This is me, and it's fun, and I do love singing and around the house and stuff. So
who are your influences then?
I don't know about vocalists, but just musically, like when you're talking about all the rave stuff, I was thinking of all the stuff like when I started to get into indie music, and it was the bands that were indie but approaching the kind of dance thing. I was obsessed with Jesus Jones. I absolutely loved them, and bands like the Shaman and Utah Saints and things like that. And then it sort of veered into all the kind of EMF and then proper indie. And then all the female bands that were in that, I loved Curve and Tony Halliday's vocals and Lush, and then it got into Elastica. And so it's just gone down that route before I discovered Riot Girl. And then all the bands that were out in the 70s that I hadn't even heard of at that time, like the Slits and Lilliput and Kleenex. And it was just really good, a total discovery. And then I could enjoy proper influences, because even bands like the B-52s I had heard of when I was younger, but I hadn't delved deep into listening to albums and realizing how amazing they were, and vocally, like, totally inspiring, amazing. People used to compare us to B-52s a lot, and at that time, as I said, I hadn't really delved deep into their early albums at all, and I was like, what? I only know, Rock Lobster,
Love Shack.
Love Shack. But to have a singing voice like mine, which is not the most tuneful, and then a voice like that, it's just like, how can you compare vocally that, but the kind of quirkiness of the music, you get that, and then the kind of male-female working off each other vocally. So major compliment if we get that. And
you both, you're all three of you are going on tour. It would be not quite BIS if it was just the two of you, but yeah. So yeah, John Disco's invited as well, but yeah, you're going on a tour. And in terms of playing live, will you be doing anything different? Will you be having sort of live drums, or are you going to get the pads out?
Yeah, we're kind of happy just being back to the three of us. I think when we've done things with the full band, the drummer and bass player, I think it makes some of the earlier stuff sound fuller, but we do slip into sort of sounding like a traditional rock band. So I think, again, we're talking about so many different eras, it's really hard to cover all the bases in one set. But with the three of us, we're not, this is the second Ian Brown reference, but we're not going full back in karaoke backing track. But, it's just the three of us. So yeah, there's various drum machines going on. There's the odd triggered sequence that's not technically live and all these things, but you kind of like, that's kind of always been the way for us anyway. So it's, especially the new stuff, because of geography and time, we have so little practicing time that we will have to wait and see how we do that, because we haven't practiced a single note of the new record. So that's the way it's muscle memory usually kicks in for everything else. So we usually give ourselves, there's 12 songs on that record. So if we can pull off 4 this time and then add another couple the next time. So,
yeah.
But yeah, we'll just work on the songs to see which ones are going to make the grade live. And every time we do any kind of gigs, I'm just like, I really should play this song from whatever record that we've not played for ages. And it's the only times I really listen to their entire back catalogue is just when you're setting up for a tour. And I've been doing it just before this. I'm like, right, lie detector test from the first album. Like, we never played that. We should do it as like a slower one, and like Retail of the Details. That's a brilliant Data Panic song. All this never going to happen, but the focus will be on making the new ones work for sure. But it's always good to get out there. Geography, time, etc., just restricts us to the number of gigs we can really do.
Yeah.
And it would be easy just to be like, we can't make our file of faxes work together, but you've just got to do it. Hopefully we can do the new things justice. Only time will tell.
You must have really enjoyed making the video for Lucky Night, because it looked like you all had a whale of a time.
That's the best thing. That's probably the least effort we've ever had to put into a video, but we're actually in it. The guy who made that, Jason, is utterly amazing. What a talented guy. It's just fun, and I will not be doing any moves like that on the stage. Maybe John will, but not me.
I had to look twice. I was thinking, what is this? What is this? And then, oh, it's this.
My son was watching it and he just was kind of gobsmacked. But also to see me with a cigarette, it was kind of funny, because me with a cigarette is just a funny thing, because I'm so against them and I've never had smoked in my life. So it's just like, oh my God. Very funny. But thank you.
It was the easiest shoot in the world, because it took us all of, half an hour just to be scanned into this technology. It's like, as Amanda says, it's just like we are technically in it, so that's
Well, it opens up so many other avenues, because you just need your own sort of computer game franchise as well.
Totally.
BIS takes on the world or something.
Burgess would end up getting it, so why? Yeah, maybe we should.
Guys, good luck with everything, and we're looking forward to what you come up with next, and maybe phase 6. You never know; there might be some.
There's bound to be another phase.
Would it be the slip mat phase?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I still have my designs. My next concept is just to do a sort of overreaching double album full concept, like Ill Communication or Check Your Head. Just do every style of BIS in one absolutely needlessly sprawling 20-song epic, because we've got loads of time to spare. Anyway, you heard it here first.
Well,
you submit a record to Spotify, you've got to select the genre to place it in, and it's just like, whoa, where do I begin with this? I could pick that and that and that, and you can only pick so many. So
yeah,
interesting.
The album's called Systems Music for the Home Defense. Is that right?
Systems Music for Home Defense.
Yeah.
You put in an extra there, but that's okay. Doesn't make any sense anyway.
Where does the title come from?
Systems Music is a kind of computer generated, but it's a computer composed music, so it's random, and so that's my kind of nod to the more electronic things. And the home defense comes from what I was talking about earlier about the emotional safety net of the rave music, the music of innocent youth or whatever. So that's what it's basically, electronic music for emotional safety. That's what it should be called. I've just changed it to Systems Music for Home Defense, but that's what it means. And in no way did I just make that up on the spot thinking about it. Not at all.
Guys, thanks so much again, and good luck with everything, as I say, and speak to you soon on phase 6.
Cheers, Chris. Nice one.
All right.
Thank you.